Hey to everybody joining us here. I'm Rebecca Radice, and it has been way too long since I have been live. And so I was just thrilled to death when I got the chance to hang out with one of my absolute favorite people, Diana Adams. And Diana, if you're not familiar with her, she is a tech industry expert, just an all-around amazing human.
Thanks.
And yes, and like I said, one of my favorite people to hang out with. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. And it was fun because I remember last week I was talking to you, since you're one of my very dearest friends and social media mentors. I was talking to you about all of these changes going on social media right now. And it was on Slack. I don't know if you remember this last week. And then I thought, wait a minute. There's probably a lot of people who would like to know some of this information you're telling me. So I'm really tickled pink to be here because for the first time I get to interview you for a change.
So we're kind of flipping the tables today.
Exactly. And I was thinking between the two of us over the past, I don't know how many years, we've probably done what, like 50 live events maybe? Maybe even more than that. Yeah, maybe even more than that. So this is just thrilling to me because it's like role reversal. I get to interview you for a change. So
I love it.
You've got a lot of great info for us. So I know most people here on Facebook, I mean, they follow you, they see your posts, and they know you. But I still wanted to kind of let everybody know who you are, what you do. So I thought I would read your bio, which I love, just to kind of give people a little background. So you are a blogger. I know your blog has gotten so many awards. Award-winning blogger, a recognized social media leader, and the CMO for Radiant LA, which is a premier training and development company. You develop integrated, data-driven initiatives, including comprehensive digital marketing, growth, and communication strategies. You're passionate about coaching, and I know that you've trained thousands of business professionals on how to use social media, digital, and inbound marketing strategically, and you help people to maximize, prioritize, and monetize their online efforts, which I know that's something so many people struggle with. So I know you've helped so many people. And as a speaker, you've been featured on CBS Los Angeles, ABC, and the NATO International Summit. You're listed as a top 10 social media and content marketer by Analytica, and most recently, a top marketer of 2017 by Brand24. And you know, this is the abbreviated bio I put together. I could go on and on and on.
Oh, well, and we don't need to, thank goodness.
Well, I think to me, the thing that I know you for is something that's not anywhere in here, and that's that you are a productivity expert. I love that. I'm always learning from you about how to maximize my day. I mean, you just do it all. To say you do it all is an understatement.
Ooh, I don't know about that. I'd say we're all a work in progress, right? But productivity is definitely a passion, that's for sure.
Oh, and I've never seen anybody do it like you do. But anyway, back to today's topic. We'll just take a little slice out of that for today's topic, and that is all of the social media changes going on. And I think what prompted our conversation about it was the end of last week when Pinterest announced that they are integrating hashtags now. Yeah. So now, for the first time ever, hashtags on Pinterest. I remember from years back you talking about Pinterest. I could be wrong in this, but I think Pinterest is like your first social media love, right? And I was looking at your account. You've pinned over 11,000 pins, which is insane. And you have over 32,000 followers. So I think you are the perfect person to ask, how are these Pinterest hashtags going to affect marketers? How do you plan to use them? Just give us all the juicy info about that.
Yeah, well, you know, it really is a very exciting change. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Are you, Diana?
No, I'm not getting any. Let me unplug my earbuds and plug them back.
Let's see if that takes care of it.
Does that help? Does that help it? Oh.
And let's see. How about, nope, still getting it. Always tech challenges, right?
Always teaches us to roll with the punches, right?
Maybe take them out altogether and see.
How's that? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I don't have an echo. Do you?
I'm not able to hear you well that way. Do you still have it?
I don't.
Okay, good. I'm fine.
But you can hear me.
I can. No, I can hear you now. So we're good. We fixed it.
All right. Got it. All right. So this is a really big deal for Pinterest as far as the hashtags are concerned. And let me take a step back to when I first got started. So if anybody has been around Pinterest long enough, you know that they started out in the beta days where you actually had to get an invitation to get onto Pinterest. And Peg Fitzpatrick had shared an invitation with me.
And me too. That's where I got my invite.
Yes.
I stayed in that beta stage for a long time, remember?
A very long time.
A couple of years, I think. A year or two at least.
Yeah. And, you know, I think the bug bit me hard pretty fast as a blogger when I recognized, you know, what the opportunity was to really spread my content and get it out there in front of a whole new market. And at first we were using hashtags because we were really accustomed to that, right? We'd all come over.
Right.
Yeah. We'd all come over from Twitter and we were very used to using multiple different hashtags. And Pinterest came out and they said, yeah, they pretty much put the whole poo-poo kibosh on that and said, you know, you can use them, but they're not doing you any good. And in fact, they might even hurt you. And they just didn't work in the same way that they work in other locations. So we stopped using them altogether for the last, you know, several years. So them coming out and now saying that Pinterest hashtags are going to work just like they do pretty much anywhere else was very exciting news. Now it's good news, bad news, and the bad news being there could be some work on your end to go back through depending on how much content you've pinned. But the exciting news is that it now does give you the same opportunities you get on Twitter or LinkedIn or over on Facebook, where you can now use those hashtags as your keywords or your phrases, and people can click through to those and connect with either more of your content or maybe other people that are pinning content with that same exact hashtag. So a lot of different opportunities. And for me, it's just another way to expand into a whole new group, possibly that's not familiar with my content. And I've seen a lot of change over the years as, you know, Pinterest, their algorithm has obviously changed, but I've seen a lot of success with Pinterest. So for me, this is just another positive evolution.
Exactly. And so when people click on the hashtag, just like they would do that on Twitter, they will see a feed of people using that hashtag. And I know Pinterest has said that they're going to put the freshest pins at the top, kind of like on Twitter. You can click on the latest button, right? And you can see the latest tweets, same thing. So with that being said, so you are going to go back and edit some of your old tweets and add hashtags? Or how far should somebody go back? If somebody's watching this and they're thinking, well, do I do that to all my pins or just the ones in the past month? How much time should they invest in updating those older pins?
That's a great question. And certainly that's going to have everything to do with your bandwidth. How much time do you actually have? And the hard part is we're just in the beginning stages. So it's tough to know if going back and adding those hashtags is really going to be a huge benefit, based off the fact that they're surfacing the freshest content. And that has so much to do with the smart feed and how your content or your pins actually get seen. And that's a little bit of what I was alluding to, that has changed changed dramatically over the years. So, to answer your question, I would start small. I would start with your top pins. Start with those pins that have A, been your most popular, and B, have everything to do with the type of content you want to be known for. So you want to rank for. So think about what are those keywords, those phrases that people would be searching for when they're looking for you. So is it social media? Is it social media marketing? Is it small business? What are those keywords or hashtags? And then go through your top performing pins to see, okay, here's maybe my top 10. Let's start with that and do your own testing. I would not only test adding in your hashtags, see if you get any additional traction off of those, but then test your new pins as well. So what I mean by that is A/B test. Pin and see how one particular pin does with hashtags and without hashtags. Start to get a feel for how it's working within your business, within your industry, because those hashtags are going to be really different for everybody. What I use as hashtags within social media or the digital marketing space or for branding, going to be very different for you with technology and artificial intelligence and machine learning and all those things you talk about.
Exactly. It all comes back to testing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't everything in social media come back with do your testing, look at your data?
Really pay attention to what's going on with, obviously, as this evolves and as we learn more, but it's always a good idea. Yeah, to your point, I did so much of that in the early days of Pinterest, of testing out the look and feel. So, the text to the title, to the content, to the description, just so much that we've tested over the years. And this is going to be a very similar opportunity to test what it does for your content. And why I brought up the difference between my hashtags as opposed to yours is how big is your market? How big is your market over there on Pinterest? What's their appetite for your content? How interactive are they? How busy are they pinning your content? So just so many different variables.
So just one more question about Pinterest, and then we'll move on to Twitter. I'm very excited about. But one more question about Pinterest, which comes to my mind, and that is that Pinterest has said you can use up to 20 hashtags. Now, you and I have had this conversation about Instagram and Twitter multiple times about how many hashtags to use. I know we've both tested that on Instagram and Twitter, but what are you planning to do on Pinterest? Like, how many hashtags? Do you think like 3 or 4, or how are you going to approach that in the beginning? I mean, obviously nobody really knows what's going to work until they do their testing, but I just want to know what Rebecca's going to do.
Yeah. Well, to your point, Pinterest has come out and said that they want you to be hyper specific about the hashtags that you're using. So it's going to be incredibly important that you really narrow your focus and utilize the best hashtags for that particular piece of content. So if you're talking about blogging,
so it's not one size fits all. It's
right. Yeah. Exactly. Make sure that your hashtags are centered around blogging. Right. So you're going to want to do a little bit of research. And here's the cool part. Pinterest on the mobile app, I don't see that this works on desktop at this point. But when you search or go to add a hashtag within your description as you're pinning something, it actually works just like Instagram, where it will start to autofill what it believes. Yeah, and then it will give you a whole list. And that list at first is going to be a little irrelevant, but this is such a beautiful example of machine learning in action.
I was just going to say, it's going to learn and prompt. Yep. Twitter do that.
Exactly. I know. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes. Come on. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, so it works really well, but I I would suggest you use 2 to 5 to start out. My concern with 20 is how that's going to look within your pin. And is it going to feel a little spammy? Is it going to feel like way too much? So start with maybe a handful, 5 of your best keywords. And as you think about keywords, again, it's your best opportunity. So going for something as broad as marketing might not be your best opportunity, where you might want to niche that down just a little bit and start to really look at, because it does also give you the data within that hashtag, just like Instagram, how many people are pinning within that hashtag. So how much competition do you have? And sometimes going broad, not your best case scenario, where if you niche down, you have a smaller audience, but you can be a bigger fish in that smaller pond and really connect with a whole lot more people. So I'd start small, work your way through it. Again, test to see, does 20 really make a difference as opposed to maybe 2 or 5? I think the beauty is in what Pinterest has suggested, which is just get hyper specific.
And we talked about this last week. I always go back to just think of it like you would Google, right? Pretend like Google. What is somebody going to type in to find you or your blog and your content? That's right. The word. It might not be marketing. It might be, something way more specific than that. So that's a really
that's great advice across the board. No matter the social network is, just do your due diligence on what those keywords are.
Okay, so that's great information about Pinterest. Thank you. Now let's talk about Twitter, because as you know, the 280 character hashtag was trending a couple different days last week, and everybody's been talking about that. It seems as though the Twitter veterans like me are like, no way, we don't want that. But the people who are newer to Twitter, they're just like, whatever. They don't seem to be as passionate about it, I'll say, as some of us have been. For me personally, Twitter is all about brevity. It's being short and sweet. And I think in 140 characters now. My whole attention span in my life has been altered because of all my years on Twitter. I'm not into the 280 character thing. And as you know, there's now a Chrome extension that people can get that blocks the 280 character tweets. Wow, people are really into it. I want to know your opinion. You also have a huge, we were talking about your audience on Pinterest being huge. You've got a huge audience on Twitter. You sent, let me see how I wrote it down. So, over 90,000 tweets. So,
just a few, exactly. Kind of like my pins.
Exactly. So what do you think about the 280 characters?
Well, I am
marketers, specifically from a marketer's perspective.
And I am definitely with you as an early adopter that less is more. That's always been the attraction for me over on Twitter, is just the brevity, the ability to keep our thoughts short and sweet and concise. I thought it was really interesting, Jack Dorsey saying that 140 was just arbitrary. It had to do with SMS at the time and the limitations, and that they felt this was really opening the door to more adopters to the platform, which of course we all know they have really struggled with. His feeling was that expanding to 280 characters would give people more room to tell their story, give people more opportunity to share their thoughts.
That's what Facebook is for.
Right. And I think I shared that sentiment with several people last week. But I do, from a marketing standpoint, I always see the upside. There's always opportunity for us to share a little bit more of who we are as a company and what we care about, and talk a little bit more about what matters most to us. But with that are the cons, of course, where you're going to get more spammy tweets and more people using 50 hashtags within their tweets, or the negativity that we have seen become quite rampant.
The political rants, right? Will just be more
and more of that.
Exactly.
So yeah, you have to take the good with the bad. So right now, just so everybody knows, this is rolling out to only select people. Not everybody has this, but it is active now. I actually tested it last week to see if a tweet with 280 characters would get any more engagement than one without, and it didn't. So that was simply one tweet, no data to go off of yet, but it will be interesting to see if that less is more theory holds true.
Right.
And the fact that giving us more characters doesn't mean it gives us more ability to go viral or expand our content into a new market, or all those things that we want as marketers. So, I wasn't thrilled about it. I am very much adhering to the 140 characters, but yeah, I certainly see the plus side.
Exactly. And I want to be open-minded. I don't want to be one of those people who's, oh, no, that'll never work. I'm open-minded about it. I'm just, one other positive thing is, how people send those annoying tweets where they write a tweet and then it continues with the next tweet and it continues? Yeah, I'm talking about. Maybe some of that'll kind of stop.
Yeah. Well, you can only hope, right? That has become an interesting trend that I don't quite understand. But yeah,
exactly. Well, thank you for that. Your insight on Twitter. How about if we move on to Instagram?
Absolutely.
I think probably about 6 or 8 weeks ago, Instagram started threading comments. And that's a change that I love, because I have always found it a little bit difficult to interact with people on Instagram, because the whole stream was muddied up with different parts of different conversations, and it wasn't organized, I guess. And now it feels like it's more tidied up. And I would like to know your opinion on how has that affected you as a marketer, and how has that impacted you?
Well, and I don't know if it's necessarily as a marketer, but just as a user experience. To me, it's much cleaner, much more user-friendly. And I feel as if, instead of adding to the noise, now we can have smaller, more intimate conversations. So that is terrific on a personal side. On a marketer side, I definitely see the ability to take it from that conversation of one to many to the one-on-one. So that to me has been a really nice shift, where instead, so if people aren't familiar with what threaded or nested comments are, instead of you replying to somebody and it dropping down to the bottom, it's going to automatically thread or combine those comments into one conversation. So you can go back and forth with somebody, with multiple people, without it feeling as if, like you said, you're muddying up that entire comment stream. So I think from that perspective, it's really nice to be able to consolidate everything into a much cleaner look, and also to be able to quickly scan and see who's having conversations maybe within that thread. And this just follows a lot of, I feel, are very nice additions with the spam filter, with the ability to filter out based off of keywords, and really start to keep those spammy comments, maybe those negative comments that we definitely see a lot of on Instagram, out of the eye of everybody. Because how many times have you seen that, where you go to somebody's post, and you see this a lot with celebrities where they've posted something and it's very heartwarming to you, but for some reason they've gotten a ton of negative feedback, and it just takes away. It takes away from the entire post, because what ends up happening? All of a sudden, everybody's engaging. They're piling on top, which is wonderful. They're trying to support their favorite celeb or their favorite person on Instagram, but they're piling on. And that just takes away from the whole feeling that was trying to come across with that post. So I think they've made a lot of nice changes in the last several months. And I think nested, threaded comments just goes along with the whole idea of keeping it personal over on Instagram and maintaining those one-on-one conversations.
And what you said reminds me of something else, that now there's that setting in Instagram where you can just, click the setting and it will automatically block potentially offensive comments. Mm-hmm. I don't have that on mine because I want to decide if something's offensive. I don't want Instagram to not allow comments that they might think are offensive, but that is an option that people have.
And again, I think it's a nice option. It's nice that we have the ability to be able to decide that on our own. And for some people, it's definitely worth it when you see the amount of negative feedback people get. It just takes away from the entire experience for everybody. And instead of it being this positive, fun place where we can go and we can talk about what we're doing throughout our day, it starts to become this heavy, awful place to be. Yeah, it's just no fun. Doesn't it feel that way? Where it's like,
I'm laughing because I was just on Instagram last night and I was looking at some posts that are exactly like what you're talking about, where it's just, anyway. Yeah.
It's too bad. It's too bad, but it is the nature of the beast. We are all human beings and we all have opinions, and there's nothing wrong with that. Where it becomes a problem is when it takes over the post and it takes away the complete purpose, I think, of the platform in connecting people in a very positive place.
And just while we're on the topic of comments and threaded comments, I know LinkedIn's made some changes with their comments also. And they may be changes that people haven't really noticed, but do you want to speak to that a little bit? I know they tried some things, it didn't work. They tried something else.
Yeah, and LinkedIn is changing by leaps and bounds. It is amazing to me how much is happening over there. So if you haven't spent any time on LinkedIn, you definitely need to be there. You had mentioned that Pinterest was maybe my number one love, but LinkedIn was my first.
I remember that. Like you said, you've been there since what, like the 90s or something?
Well, no. 2004, when they first really came onto the market in the 90s. Hang on a second. How long have I been around? But it's funny because the evolution of LinkedIn is massive. When you look at where LinkedIn started, and really what we thought was a place to put your resume up on in the digital space. For me, it started out as just a great way to get known outside of my local area, to start creating connections all over the world. And that's absolutely what it's done for me. And now it's turned into a content platform. It's turned into just a wonderful way. I'm getting feedback again, Diana.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Let me pull my...
All right, let's
How's
see.
that?
Oh, we're good. We're good.
Uh-oh, now I can't hear you.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, but it's just really become a wonderful way to connect with people on a very professional level. So you'll see a lot of unique or different conversations that are happening over on LinkedIn that aren't happening on Facebook. And there's a lot of talk about this isn't Facebook, we're not looking for it. I disagree in the fact that it doesn't have to be one or the other. I think we can have really interesting, important conversations over there. And that's exactly what's happening. And so I think a lot is continuing to evolve. Like you were talking about, you may have not noticed how comments on posts within your LinkedIn feed are happening. But again, kind of that nested situation and a nice change of pace where it starts to take on a conversation between two people or three people as opposed to just one long conversation.
Right.
So this is something we've seen in email and so many different apps over the years, and it's nice that we're finally starting to see it move over into all of our social networks as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we can just create that seamless experience.
Exactly. So before we wrap up here, because I know we're kind of hitting the 30-minute mark, I just wanted to quickly touch on Facebook. Facebook is always making tons of changes, right? Every month there's like top 10 changes on Facebook this month. It's just tons of stuff. Right? There is. I'm like, where all this stuff?
Their developers are busy. That's for sure.
Exactly. So, but one thing kind of caught my eye, and I thought maybe you could share your insight about this, and that is they are testing and may come out with the ability to share Instagram stories right over to Facebook from the Instagram app. And my first thought to that was like, wow, that'll save so much time for marketers, right? This will be great. They can leverage, get more out of each piece of content. But then I thought of what Rebecca has said all throughout the years, which is the audience on each platform is different. Tailor your content for that audience. So what is your initial feedback about that potential change?
Well, it's an interesting move, but not such a surprising one with the enormous success of stories. They launched stories on Facebook. It's had, so-so. Just the amount of interest. Facebook Messenger Day. It's interesting. You look at the numbers, and I think they have 70 million people using it now. But for me, as a marketer, I think that data is pretty suspect because people outside of social media and digital marketing, I don't see anybody adopting that as a platform as opposed to sharing their content as an Instagram story. So of course, they're trying to capitalize on the huge success of Instagram stories. They're trying to move people over to Facebook. But I do agree with you. Each platform is so unique and so different. And I hate seeing, for example, posts on Twitter that were just pushed directly from Instagram or directly from Facebook with no, thought to the audience on that particular network. So to me, I'd rather keep everything separate with stories here, and the ability to create unique content for each of those. Now, with that said, as I said earlier, there's always an upside. So as a marketer, it will reduce the amount of time that it's going to take to post content from one social network to the next. It will allow you to kind of shorten the amount of work that you're doing for one social network to another. But does, on the flip side of that, does that mean that we're losing the unique content that's going out to each one? Are we losing the ability to really put forethought and foresight into the type of content that we're sharing across each social network? So there's a lot to consider, and for everybody, your workflow is a little bit different, but for me, I would prefer to keep everything separate.
And I think it comes down to, do you put yourself first and what's convenient for you, or do you put your audience first? Right.
Good point.
Which one? And some people, they're going to have to make a decision one way or the other based on time, right?
Yeah.
Because they've only got so much time. But I had a feeling that was going to be your answer to that one.
Surprise, surprise, right?
I feel like I know you so well, Rebecca.
Maybe it's because you do, and because I harp on create unique content.
Exactly.
And don't just push out the same stuff everywhere. I mean, obviously, you're sharing similar content. You're sharing your blog post all over the place. But what I mean by that is don't push one button and shoot out the same thing everywhere, every single time.
Do you remember back in the old days when people were on Foursquare and every single time they checked in somewhere, it would send a tweet?
Oh,
remember? I'm talking, this is like 2010 Twitter I'm talking about here.
The dark days.
Yeah,
we refer to those, the dark days.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a treat. Totally.
No, thank you. Thank you. A lot of fun. Just as you said, so many changes happening and so much to keep up with.
Yeah, we could do this every month. There would be changes on. Yeah, it's just it's nuts.
There's an idea.
But it has been such a pleasure to talk to you today and to get your insight and based on so many years of experience, and just really, really appreciate it. And I know you helped me a lot, and I hope everyone else got a lot of great info too. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. And I would love for our audience here to be able to connect with you. So tell people where they can find you.
Adams Consulting, Twitter, which is where I'm mostly at, but Facebook and Instagram, everywhere. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again, Diana. As I said, always a super big treat to get to hang out with you. And I love talking about all that's going on. It is just amazing how much changes in just a few days, let alone a week span in social media. Yeah,
exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Rebecca. And thank you, everybody, for coming.